and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Black Rims. I'm Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
And welcome to Season 3, Episode 10.
Or Episode 56 if you're counting.
And it's true, we are actually broadcasting on Twitch a day early. This is because, you know what? We're getting a little sick of broadcasting on nights where there's a big movie release, and we could be out there learning about it and then telling you guys about it.
Not that we don't love doing this, it's just sometimes you have a busy schedule and you have to make room for everything.
And Godzilla is sort of a big deal.
Yeah.
Not that all the other movies that we sort of delayed in seeing, for example, second Captain America movie, like that wasn't a big deal or anything. But Godzilla, I think, to us, is a bigger deal. You know, purely because, like, I don't know how many times anybody needs to bring up 1998's Godzilla. I'm just saying America's foray into Godzilla has only been so successful.
I mean, heck, Honest Trailers just let them have it, yesterday with the...
something like that, yeah.
With their version of the Honest Trailers for Godzilla 1998.
For that reason, it's kind of a big deal that Toho, you know, famous for Godzilla and its other monster films,
right,
really gave its love and its agreement to go ahead and let this movie be produced. So that is why we want to be out there and see this movie on premiere night. Thus, we are going live on Wednesday instead of on Thursday. And if you are watching on YouTube, actually, I would really like to get this up for you guys with enough time for you to realize we're not doing a live show, so, you know, in case you came running down like, this is gonna be the week that I come out to the live show, I'm sorry, I guess we unintentionally screwed you over. That really wasn't the intention.
But the way it works for everybody is that they will have, from what I understand, most major markets will have 7 p.m. showings tomorrow night, so you guys who normally would watch us on Thursdays, you have the chance to go see the movie early as well.
So there you go.
And then we'll be able to talk about that next episode.
Mm-hmm. So, that having been said...
What's going on?
Well, what's going on? You know what? Quite a bit is going on between you and me. I did want to bring up, of course, a number of times, and I still have it in the ticker temporarily for now. But, yeah, we've had this GoFundMe going on for our wedding reception, and as it turns out, just this week, we actually crossed and made our goal. And so today we were able to go down to our reception space and write them out a check to finish paying off the full amount. And for that, we really can't thank just those of you who watched enough. And there are some of you who have come into our chat room and have been contributors to the GoFundMe, and thanks to you guys, well, we're having a wedding, so...
Yes, we can't thank you guys enough for your generosity and your support. It means, for this point in our lives, it means the world to us, so very much a heartfelt thank you to you guys, and we hope that we're going to be able to give back in terms of what we have coming out next for you guys, that you'll be able to enjoy these next projects that we have coming up.
Mm-hmm. For now, we're only leaving the GoFundMe up in case anybody cares to contribute anything further, but only up until our wedding day, and then we're going to close it off.
Right.
But for right now, if I am to be honest, there's really nothing more as far as the wedding reception that you really have to be concerned, oh, they're not going to make it or anything. We're very pleased. We're very excited, and we're very grateful. That's all we really wanted to get across, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah, did we want to mention we've got some stuff coming up to
actually,
work on? Or?
Yeah, we finished writing a video between the two of us, and that, you want to say what video that's for?
Yes, as it turns out, you know what we talk about here on the show. We talk about, you know, topics that we like, we talk about topics that we're passionate about, and sometimes you get throwbacks to older movies and intellectual properties that you've grown up with that maybe somebody might have missed. And as such, Kaylin had decided, you know what, now's probably a good time to bring back this old thing I used to do, the translation terrors.
Translation terrors and adaptation terrors.
And
this specifically that we've been working on is an adaptation terror.
Right, and it covers one of my favorite franchises and a movie that's pretty infamous by this point, which is the 1992 release of The Guyver by New Line Cinema. So we'll go ahead and be filming that fairly shortly from now, and hopefully that'll be up soon.
We're waiting on one prop in the mail, and that is about the only thing we're waiting on. So yeah, we want to film that this week and get it out as quick as possible. And I do want to address that, yeah, it's been done by other reviewers before. Specifically, Bennett the Sage did it in a crossover episode along with Doug Walker, the Nostalgia Critic. I want to say that ours is a different approach because we are giving it to you as, oh, how does it stack up as an adaptation from its original source material. So I do not discourage you from watching other people's reviews because they're very entertaining, but I think you might get something new and interesting out of ours. So I'll be excited to share more of that with you guys in the future. Yeah,
definitely be on the lookout for that coming within the next few weeks. But before that, we should probably talk about our stories for tonight.
Right. So tonight, the main stories are going to include Doraemon. Some of you might be familiar with the manga or the anime series Doraemon, which has been going on for decades in Japan. Well, now they're bringing an adaptation of Doraemon over to the States to be aired on Disney XD, and there's a number of edits that come along with that, and you might be surprised at how big some of them are.
The second story we're going to cover is, yes, by now, everybody's already seen it, everybody's already talked about it, it's our turn to talk about it. Zack Snyder, just a few, in the grand scheme of things, within 24 hours, has revealed to us the look of Ben Affleck as Batman in this Batman vs. Superman movie, and we're going to talk about that and how that's going to pan out against everything else.
And finally, we're both really excited about, again, something else that a lot of other news sites have picked up, the Akira Project, a fan-made trailer, live-action, as something of an adaptation of the Akira movie, the animated movie from the 1980s. An amazing piece of little bitty tiny cinematic, stick it in your pocket, just this much of a film. And we really gotta talk about it because it blew my mind.
Yes.
It just, I want to gush on it. That's all I have to say. I want to gush on it.
And we're going to do that. But first and foremost, we always got to get to our follow-up stories. And again, this week we have to talk about another death in the fan community. At the age of 79, we lost one H.R. Geiger, who, of course, famously created the character models for the Alien franchise. This man's work has haunted people for years. His work in the Alien movies now, of course, will live on past him. When they were looking to design things for the original, Ridley Scott went to him and asked him, we need something that looks otherworldly. We need something that doesn't look like anything else that's been done before. And H.R. Geiger gave him these designs, very much having been inspired by an art book of his. And they came to that brilliant decision, you know what? Don't give it eyes. That gives away... That takes away, I should say, any
humanity,
any sort of attachment. Because we as humans get attached to things that have eyes. We tend to make them a little more humanistic in that respect. But by removing that, I think it made it that scary, iconic movie monster that it is today.
Oh yeah, by far, easily.
And as such, that stuck out. I remember having nightmares when I was a kid watching Aliens.
Oh yeah.
From that design, you'd try to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and you'd be afraid, or I would be afraid they'd be behind the shower curtain. And but of course that was me at 6 or 7. Once I hit about 10 or 11, that got replaced with the alien suits from Independence Day, so it kind of switched out.
Well, that's just because you stuck yourself into Independence Day so hard and entrenched and fanned on it so hard.
Well, really, it's just the fact that me being me, I have a small phobia of extraterrestrials being behind shower curtains.
Okay.
That's just me. I don't think that happens to anybody else.
I'm sure somebody does. I'm just never had that problem, I'm afraid. For me, it's always dinosaur nightmares. But that's because I entrenched hard on Jurassic Park.
Well, see, that makes sense. Okay, so, but, of course, Mr. Geiger, you will be missed. We were going to talk a little bit about The Flash tonight. We were hoping that the teaser that was going to show up at the end of the season finale of Arrow was going to have a little bit more to offer, but really all we can talk to you about right now is the teaser that was shown, which is very simple. It's the Green Arrow there on a hillside, getting ready to shoot off, one arrow into a target, and then along comes the Flash and he catches it.
For a while, I was a little concerned that teaser was really more about Green Arrow than it was about the Flash. But then finally, by the halfway point, they got him.
Yeah.
They got him, and he stayed there.
It's very short. It's only a few seconds. He launches one, catches it, got it. And, he launches 3 more, and he's like, all right, you're on. Or, paraphrasing, of course. But just from the get-go, they're very much showing the tonalistic difference in that the Flash will be much more lighthearted.
I'm glad that's character accurate.
Yes, I'm very happy to see that. I'm still not entirely digging the darkened, kind of daredevilish red that they're going with on the costume.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that from a recent promotional piece that they put online that they had, in fact, brightened up the red, and it turns out that's not really the case.
Right. I had hoped for the same, but you know what? We'll probably still make do. It'll still hold out for the series as it stands. And thankfully, though, the CW has picked it up for a full season, so we'll get at least one good season.
Good.
Hopefully a good season out of this series. But, of course, that's that news. The other small bit we had here is that we've talked, of course, about the Heisei Kamen Rider versus Showa Kamen Rider movie war that they had about a month ago. Well, they've announced that the DVD, when it is released, will have both endings.
It doesn't surprise me, because the story before, and if you heard us talk about it before, was that, well, you got to vote. Would the old school Kamen Riders get to win at the end of the movie, or would the new school Kamen Riders get to win at the end of the movie? Well, it turns out the DVD will give you both. So despite the fact that the new school guys won the popular vote, who's really that surprised? They had to film both endings. What are they going to do with the other ending? Just store it somewhere?
No, it was kind of like a no-duh. Really, that's our no-duh story of the week.
Yeah.
So, we'll be thankful to see which side looked... I guess which side was filmed better. Which ending was filmed better. I mean, yeah, there's really not a point to it because they're heroes.
Yeah,
they both
I kind of don't care. That's what
side of justice.
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand why they're fighting to begin with, other than for the sake of fan service, fan service just to see writers fight writers, and it's just like, well, you guys should all be on the same side of justice. So what are you doing? So my other opinion is that it will likely be the win is likely one of them is gonna weaken them a whole bunch and then be like, now I pass it off to you to land the final kick or something, and that's what's considered winning against the main evil baddie.
Now, as it stands, we currently haven't read, between the two of us, I don't know if it's out there, we haven't read any synopses of how the movie actually went, so we can't say one way or the other how the movie actually played out. But of course, once the DVD is released, we'll know for certain.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing to cover is actually the fact that I'm back to my Arizona tea this week, but Kaylin has, luckily enough, found a can of Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
I know we talked about the bottles of Baja Blast, I guess it was last week.
Right.
And now, finally, Baja Blast appears to be appearing in more and more stores now, and now we're not having to go on this stupid hunt through Middle Earth to find them. So this is my first time trying a can. Actually, I wanted to open the can up right now before we got into our main story, so thanks, can. I appreciate that.
Now,
nice
the thing we're all wondering about is it everything you hoped it would be?
Let's find out. Yeah, I dare say it tastes better from a can. Here, take a hit.
Yeah, all right.
I'm telling you, take a hit.
All right.
This will be brief.
Oh yeah, it's better that way.
Yeah, I far prefer it from a can than from a bottle.
The flavor is more concentrated than it is in the bottle form.
All right.
I prefer that.
Anyway, I would like to go ahead and get to our main stories. So,
Yes.
The first of which, again, as we brought up, is Doraemon. And, again, like I mentioned, they're bringing him over to Disney XD. And that's this summer, I believe?
Yes.
So, at first I was really kind of excited about it. Like, wow, like Japan's ambassador to animation, you know? That's like a really big deal. Like, he should be internationally known, and it's really weird how he's kind of very little known over here in the States, right? So, yeah, he first had his manga released in the 1960s.
1969.
1969 specifically, and at the time he looked far more like a cat than he does now. So Doraemon is a cat robot from the future, and he comes to our time, whatever time right now happens to be. You always imagine it's present day. Present day Japan, where he meets a whole bunch of children, and they have really awesome childhood adventures. Like, I would compare it to Winnie the Pooh to a certain extent. Only in that you get to have children go on imaginative adventures with something that's not really, like, alive.
Well, I guess I could kind of see that if Winnie the Pooh was a robot from the future and didn't have the honey fixation. So really nothing like Winnie the Pooh other than that one thing.
You really don't understand.
I guess not.
Clearly you don't.
Well, because that's the whole point. You know, we import so much from Japan as it is, and yet he's huge over there. Huge.
You have no idea how huge a thing is until you get on a train that has a character's face sprawled across the side of it. And I've done that. I've gotten on a Doraemon train, and, I mean, people were just kind of like, yeah, that's a thing. But all the same, I was like, hey, that's a pretty cool train.
And the thing is, he's had several television series over the
years. Many different
years.
Television adaptations. So the one that we're getting is one that, you know, has been airing within recent years. Specifically, we're just getting this 26-episode run. So it's not an incredibly huge run, and I don't know if they'll pick up more seasons or anything in the future.
Who knows? And several movies, too, as well, are available to be seen. But for the time being, come this July, we're only going to get those 26 episodes.
Right. So, the weird thing about it, though, is that, you know, I thought we lived in a certain time. And in a certain age.
Yeah, you thought we'd advanced beyond a certain amount of the stuff we had to put up with growing up, which was this Americanization of things that existed in anime.
And I'm so confused about it, because, for starters, like, you take 4Kids stuff, for example. You take Pokemon, where famously rice balls get turned into donuts, for example. Right. Just as one example of many things. And to an extent, you kind of have to be thankful, like, oh, I would have never known Pokemon even existed if not for the 4Kids dub, you know? But then, by that same token, you also were kind of like, well, now that society kind of has done this enough, and Disney, because this is coming through Disney, this is not 4Kids, this is Disney picking up the license to Doraemon. It's not exactly Disney's first attempt to bring anime over. We've gotten anime through Disney before. Of course, it's all, like, Studio Ghibli stuff.
Generally, yes.
But all the same...
Like, okay, there's certain things that make sense in context, and then there's certain things that are just going into Spielbergian levels of why did you edit this?
Like there were things that, like, I totally understood. I was like, okay. The main
stuff that falls under the umbrella of just translating things.
Main character little boy's name is Nobita. Well, now they're calling him Nobi. I mean, I guess it's okay. I guess it's okay, except I don't really know any Americans named Nobi anyway. It doesn't really seem necessary, but if you're gonna cutify it in an English sense, I guess I get that. The Takecopter is now the Hopter. Alright, it's a different sort of name for a door. The Dokodemo door is now the Anywhere door. I mean, that's literally what Dokodemo means.
Right.
That's fine. then you start getting to things like, oh, but we can't have it plainly obvious that this is a Japanese family. Never mind that all of these characters are plainly Japanese looking with black hair, like very Asian stereotypically looking people.
So then you get to this mess here where, if they're sitting down at breakfast, Nobi and Doraemon with his family eating breakfast, they're no longer using chopsticks. Now they've edited it to become forks.
Omelets with rice.
Omelet rice.
They're now pancakes. Any instance of paper money yen is now dollar bills, like $5 bills. Some shots you can specifically see. Homework stuff has been fixed. Nobita's name written in Japanese is now Nobi? Wait, is that seriously what they're... You know what? His name is Nobi, like Mario and Luigi Mario.
Wow.
Okay. So they made sure to write an F on his paper, because that's a letter grade that we can understand. And admittedly, when I was in school in Japan, my teachers would put check marks by things, and I'd be like, I got it right, and they'd be like, no, that means it's wrong, and so they've changed the check marks to X's.
Yeah.
I guess that's okay. The one picture you're looking at here that we're showing you right now is the one I don't understand the most.
Right.
Now, granted, I'm not looking at it in context, but clearly Doraemon here is injured, he's hurt, he's crying a little bit, he's got a bandage over his nose, and he's pulling stuff out of a first aid kit. Now he looks completely fine, and he's, like, opening a box of pizza, and I just... Like, is he hurt and he wants to cure it by eating food? Is that...
Like, if that's the case, that's a very Garfield sort of approach. The way to fix myself is to eat.
Big streams of tears get completely removed.
Well, because I'm thinking about it, I'm looking at this picture of Doraemon, a whole first aid kit being replaced with a pizza. Like, this reminds me, you remember a couple of years ago when we first got Naruto over here, and we saw the list of edits that was going to be made to that about how they were getting rid of blood, how they were getting rid of this, that, and the other along the way. And then, of course...
In the grand scheme of things, the edits they did make for television were incredibly minor.
Well, yeah, but it
almost
elicited...
negligible.
Yeah, but it elicited this stream of photo manips that would show Naruto, he's trying to stab his hand in the original, but then they'd replace it with, like, he's carving a pumpkin or things like that. This is along those lines, except this isn't a manip. This is official from Disney XD.
Like, it really does seem like somebody played a really stupid joke. Like, Disney knew that people would get all up in arms over it because that's what the anime community does. And so they're like, you know what's gonna make people really pissed off? By replacing injured-looking characters with happy characters eating pizza. And I'm sitting here going... Like this is a delayed April Fool's joke, right? Like, this, it seems like it can't possibly be real, and yet here we are talking about it. I don't entirely understand this Americanization only because it's like, what are we so afraid of? That our kids might learn about another culture? Is that it?
Well, see, what they're doing, why they're doing all of these edits is that they're trying to adapt the already existing material to our customs, our guidelines for what shows on TV. Like they've said, we haven't seen the proof yet, but they're changing like candy in the background to look like fruit.
Oh, yeah.
And things of that nature. And it's like, why can't we do that anymore? Why can't we let a thing be a thing? Why can't we let kids eat candy? No, we've got to enforce these strict guidelines.
They do specifically say that, because of some kind of restrictions, you have to have some amount of health-focused stuff in our television shows now, I guess especially on Disney XD, or on a channel that's specifically aimed at children.
Yeah.
So, I guess also apparently the concept of a raccoon dog, the tanuki, because Doraemon frequently gets mistaken as a tanuki because he no longer looks like a cat and he gets pissed off about it. Now I guess he's supposed to get mistaken for a seal?
Well, I can kind of see that. Like, I can somewhat give them that, but even then, all those other things, like, why was that necessary? Like, couldn't we just leave it as an import?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we're trying to teach kids, is the emphasis so much more on, oh, well, we need to show you that there's fruit in the background? What kid do you know is looking for the fruit in the background of a frame? Like, think about that for a second. That sounds ludicrous. Like, I get adapting a sign to be read in English. I get that.
Yeah, I get it.
I kind of sort
that.
of get, you know, naming something in English because, you know, a kid doesn't know how to speak Japanese. You want to make it easy for them to understand. But when you're changing these minute things in the background, kids know what chopsticks are. Like, are they going to be scared if they see chopsticks? Is that going to warp their fragile little minds? Mommy, they're not using a fork! They're not using a fork! What's going on, Mommy? No. It's not going to be that bad. Disney, calm down.
My issue is more like, you make so many changes, and I just sort of wonder, like, at a certain point, doesn't that get more expensive? Why not just make your own show at this rate?
Right.
Like, if you're gonna make a bunch of changes, if you want to draw your own stuff into these cells, just draw your own show.
Yeah, just buy out the rights and make your own version.
I guess the only thing I can say is that I really hope that the series at least retains its fun and its youthful, childlike innocence, and it gets the same point across.
Right.
If it can at least do that, I can only hate on it so much, you know?
Right.
I'm really disappointed that this is the direction that Disney XD has chosen to take, but at the same time, how mad can I be when they're finally, for the first time in decades, bringing Japan's ambassador of animation over to the States for somebody to appreciate?
Because it goes back to that whole idea, people won't know about it unless it's brought over here in some form. It's basically that same argument with Super Sentai fans. Most of them wouldn't be into it if it weren't for the edits done to Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the lesser of two evils argument.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely.
So as such, we'll see this July just how well Doraemon makes it over here in the States.
Mm-hmm. I guess we're done with that story for now.
Alright, so going on to our next story. Batman, you want to come inside? No, come on, Batman. I didn't mean it. Batman, it's cool.
You know, I actually
Batman.
I actually meant to import a slightly different image, but you know, we're gonna leave that for just a second while I bring up the actual image.
Good job. Okay, so basically what we're getting to, this funny gif aside, is that Zack Snyder just yesterday revealed what people had been clamoring for. What does Ben Affleck look like in this new Batman vs. Superman movie? And we were given a tease just the day prior to that of the back end of the Batmobile under a tarp. And he's like, it's coming, maybe tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. And people started speculating, okay, are we going to get the whole suit? Are we going to get everything? Well, sure enough, he gave us the whole kit and caboodle just a day later. And basically, we got as close as we're going to get to a full-on shot for now. This suit, he had said before, very heavily is based off Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, which they're saying they're pulling a lot of source from, not entirely for the script, but just enough for certain aspects of how the interplay between Batman and Superman is going to be. Mm-hmm. And as such, we'll show you in a second with the picture, we're looking at shorter ears, we're looking at blockier scallops there on his gauntlets. The most important thing to get across is that for the first time ever, we are getting what seems to be, even though this picture is in black and white, we get our first ever black and gray adaptation of this costume.
I think you're kind of assuming. I think it's entirely possible that the suit is in fact, perhaps maybe a tinge of blue. I think it's very difficult to actually say for certain that it is in fact purely a black and gray suit.
Well, I'll give it as much in that the photo is in black and white, but if you look at the color variations from the cowl and the gauntlets to the suit he has on, there's a clear color difference. One is lighter than the other. Mm-hmm. So as such, it's a fair assumption that this is a purely black and gray costume.
Well, it's clearly a two-tone suit. Like, nobody's denying that. nobody for a second would deny that it's a two-tone suit. Just what are those two tones, though? Like, that one color manip that you saw where the belt looked yellow, I think that's too much. I think clearly the belt looks darker than yellow.
Right. Now, this, of course, was a fan's coloring on Tumblr that I'm looking at here on my laptop. But as far as the suit here is concerned, in the main picture that you guys are now seeing, people have been saying one way or another how they feel about it. Personally, I like it.
I do too.
It's exactly what they said it was. It's a take on the suit that hasn't been done before. If they are indeed going with the two-tone suit, if I had to have a complaint about it at all, it's that just from the get-go, I don't necessarily like aesthetically the choice of the bat symbol being the giant blocky one. But I get it. They're going with, the Dark Knight Returns, so that's why it's all big and very boxy.
It doesn't bother me that much.
If anything, as long as they're going with this basic design, it gives me hope for when they actually get to Justice League, they'll just give them a slightly more streamlined, more modern symbol. But that's easily fixable. That's hardly saying anything.
You say fixable as if it's a problem. I just don't see a problem.
Well, not fixable, just changeable, I should say, more accurately.
I don't mind the length of his ears at all. It's really not a problem to me either. There's also precedent for it in comic history. As for people being concerned that it looks like a muscle suit, I absolutely do not think it looks like a muscle suit. We know that Ben Affleck has buffed up and really beefed up for this role. You can tell that it's designed to look very pulled and
taut on him.
Yeah, definitely all close to his body.
Well, because let's keep this in perspective. People are complaining, oh, it's a muscle suit. It's a muscle suit. Let's not forget where we're coming from here. In Man of Steel, they said out front that Superman's suit was going to be more defined muscularly, but that didn't discount from looking at Henry Cavill, and Henry Cavill looked like a dang truck. Like, I can't complain. I'll complain about how the movie was written, but as far as look goes, he looked as muscular as Superman should. And, of course, there were the scenes there in the movie to prove that. I think for the same thing with Ben Affleck, most fans won't be satisfied until they see a picture of him with his shirt off.
I think most people won't be satisfied until they see him in motion.
That too. I'm retaining a little bit of caution, but that's not to say I'm not...
See, somebody else agreed. No real judgment until I see it in motion.
Right.
Okay, good.
It's nice to see that we're trying to be as rational as possible on this. Now, what I do like is, zooming in on this picture, I like the texturing that they've done on this costume because, like we said before, they've never done the gray and black, but as such, you look at the little fine details on it. There's a sort of different sort of design on the costume that's not quite what they've done in the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
And it's not mesh. It's not meshing. It's, ribbing, just about.
Of some kind. It looks almost athletic, with the lines on there. And if you look closely at the bat symbol, there's scratch marks on it. This is a Batman who's seen at least a little bit of battle and hasn't completely gotten out unscathed.
Right.
So that's good. I'd like to see a Batman that's got some crime fighting under his belt. And let's talk about his belt. It looks like he could actually hold equipment in there for once. Because that was the problem I had even as a kid with the Tim Burton Batman, was that all of the items that came off his belt just kind of magically popped up. Because there were no pockets, really. There were those little kind of 1-inch vials, spaced out every so far across his belt, and then magically, oh, well, here's a Batarang. Oh, well, here's your grappling gun. And it got even worse, I think, in Batman and Robin, the tools that he's pulling out from what seems to be just a piece of rubber, a thin rubber around his belt, like, oh, I'm pulling out 16 Batarangs from this belt.
I think a lot of people for a very long time just sort of accepted that because Batman is a comic book hero.
Right.
And that's about it. Which, yeah, to an extent, I did too, but if you can make him do what he's supposed to do and make it seem like he actually pulled that thing out of a place that isn't end space, then
right.
That's not so bad.
Like, people make the joke time and time again about, oh, well, his utility belt is his magic hat. It's his bag of tricks. It's
his pocket dimension, his bag of holding.
Right, basically.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about, you know what, I get you pulling out a shuriken that's shaped like a bat. I get that. It's small enough to be carried in a small pocket. But it's another thing altogether when you pull out, like, a Super Soaker XP300 out of that thing. Like, no, you didn't just do that. Like, suspension of disbelief should be held up as much as possible. I mean, that's not to say that you don't give it some, because, yeah, we're talking about a movie about a guy dressed up in a cape, tights, and bat ears. But at the same time, you want to give us a little bit of leeway.
Right, of course, I agree with that.
And of course, he's standing here next to the iconic Batmobile.
It looks beefy, but smaller than the Tumbler of previous movies.
It seems to be influenced by the Tumbler, though. I'm not going to lie about that, especially with the picture that was loaded the day before. Looking at the back, the suspension is very military, sport utility. This thing's going to haul as soon as he puts it in gear.
I think everything from his suit to the Batmobile looks somewhat also influenced by the Arkham series of games of recent years as well.
And I'm actually fine with that.
Of course, they're pulling from recent, like, New 52 comic sort of material, but that's not to say that I don't see, like, wow, he looks like he just jumped out of my screen from the game we were just playing relatively recently, So, and I really liked those designs that they gave them in that game series.
The nice thing I liked about it is that in the first game, in Arkham Asylum, you don't hardly get to use the Batmobile, but you see it, and it's very... Honestly, it was a kind of blend between the Tim Burton Batmobile and a little bit of the Tumbler, and this seems to be following that same line of thinking. It's right in the middle. It doesn't have blatant bat ears on it, but it's more angular.
Right.
It looks sleeker, and it doesn't look like it's so obvious that, oh wow, you probably got that from a military installation. You know who has a military installation in town? Wayne Enterprises. I wonder if we should ask Bruce Wayne. Like, no, this looks a little easier to get through alleyways. It doesn't look so clunky.
Yeah, functional in both size and what it can and cannot get through. Probably just about this much quieter. Just this much.
Well, because there have been some comics that make the point of saying, oh, the Batmobile has a silent mode that can't be detected, but then other comics will say, oh no, this thing sounds like a dang dragon when it roars up.
I'm saying if it doesn't have quiet cruising, it should, because that would be very stupid for, like, the #1 detective who learned how to be a detective all on his own to not have a quiet vehicle. That just seems very silly to me. Of course, we've put up with much sillier things in Batman movies, so, it doesn't really matter that much to me. It's not going to keep me from watching the film.
Oh, no. And the thing I like, too, is the way... just simple things tell you a lot. If you look at his cape, the way it's draped over his shoulder, it's much larger than what's shown here. It's not as short as, say, the Keaton cape, but at the same time, he looks like he should be able to flail it out, not necessarily to gliding capabilities like he had in this previous Dark Knight trilogy, but at least enough to have dramatic effect, and really that's what he had it for initially.
Right, of course. And I really think that there's very little more we can talk about as far as that photo is concerned. I think we've really kind of pumped it dry.
Now, of course, we're dealing with Batman. We've also got to talk about the other people in this movie. Of course, we made mention a couple of months ago that Jesse Eisenberg from Zombieland and The Social Network had been cast as Lex Luthor. And he's given a little bit of insight as to how he's approaching this role. And he says, of course, he can't say one way or the other whether or not he's going to shave his head for the role, saying that he's sworn to privacy on that matter. I assume, though, that he still got his hair, since if he was bald, somebody would have mentioned it by now.
Right.
So that's not to say one way or the other whether or not he's going to, because, to be quite honest, that change can happen in 2 minutes. Like, it doesn't take that long to shave somebody's head. By that same token, you look at Karen Gillan, who's in Guardians of the Galaxy. When she went to San Diego Comic-Con, she was wearing a wig, and it wasn't until she pulled off that wig that anybody realized, oh, she shaved her head for the role. Most people would have just assumed, oh, she just used a bald cap. But no, she went full method for that, which is fine for that. But here, it's totally up to him. And what he's saying, what he was allowed to say, I should say, is that he's aware that this is a big movie, but he's approaching it more or less just like any other role. He wants to play this as another character and have that opportunity to bring this character to life. And
so treating it like he's a person. So good.
Yeah, that's refreshing. Not somebody who's lying and saying, "Oh yeah, I've been a fan since I was a kid. I've read everything. I've read this, that, and the other." Like, shut up. Not everybody does that. I mean, honest to goodness, I'm aware of some of them actually having grown up with the series. Like Andrew Garfield, you can see the love for Spider-Man he's had ever since he was a kid, and that shows through in his performance. Ben Affleck, just the same. It's been touted over the years that he's a fairly big Batman fan. So that's part of the reason. Even Kevin Smith made mention the reason he took Daredevil initially was because he thought he was never going to get Batman.
Right.
So you're aware of these things going into it, but here he says as much as I'm not as aware of the history. So
I think that's
fine.
fair.
That's
I think that's absolutely fair to admit that, which would mean then that he comes in without any sort of expectations of who he's supposed to be.
Right.
Say if he's supposed to be a character that, very gradually becomes something that we now know, he can come at that and feel it for himself, actually feel it happening for himself, and therefore it can come across more real, rather than, oh, I know by the end I'm supposed to be like this, and then, like,
well, because you think
all
about it,
expectations.
the most recent example we have, of course, was Superman Returns, and that Lex Luthor was, of course, Kevin Spacey. And people got after Kevin Spacey for channeling Gene Hackman's performance and then taking it up to 11 with the hamminess. And that was, well, really, that was more, I want to say the influence of Bryan Singer, but then again, that movie had a lot of problems from the get-go. That's not to say Kevin Spacey's not a great actor. He's one of the best actors we've got right now. But that Luthor really didn't fit necessarily in that universe. That's not to say much else fit in that universe. But here, I like the idea that someone's coming at this refreshingly like, you know what? I'm an actor. This is a part. Let me play the part. Let me do this. Let me come at it. That's the best course of action for me.
I think that's
just
fair.
Come at it.
I absolutely think that's fair.
That, more than the suit, actually makes me feel better about this movie. Because that's the first, to me, coming from a theatrical background, that's the first positive piece of information I've gotten so far.
Truth. Absolute truth.
And as such, you know what? I'm looking forward to seeing how he looks when we finally get a character shot of him.
But what I've been hearing you complain about is, what about Superman? This is a Superman movie.
Okay, that's a legitimate question right now, because the focus right now has been put so much on everybody else in the Batman vs. Superman movie on, oh, how is Wonder Woman gonna look? How's Batman gonna look? How's Lex Luthor gonna look? Nobody gives a dang about Superman in Batman vs. Superman, and I think that's a problem.
I'm just saying, is there a finished script yet?
Well, there must be by this point. There has to be a working script.
Because I think so many people have been concerned about how it looks and not about how it plays out.
Right.
That, I think, is a severe problem that a lot of different storytellers have had. I can cite Square Enix right off the bat for that. Oh, we're gonna have all this flashy stuff. You're gonna love how it looks. Okay, how's the story?
Well, because you think about it, the best way to think about it is what I would have done if I was in Zack Snyder's shoes. Is I would have gone directly back to my childhood, to the Batman Superman movie that they made out of the animated series. That was an hour and a half of beautiful crossover. It didn't need all that much explanation. You had these two forces meeting up, kind of not getting along initially, but they never quite fight. But then they unite against their common enemies, the Joker, Harley Quinn, and Lex Luthor. And it was all there, wrapped up in a nice bow. Now, if that was the basic story they were telling here, that would be fine. If we were going into Batman versus Superman and it was just Batman versus just Superman. But like we've said before, this isn't quite Batman versus Superman. This is not quite Justice League.
Not quite Justice League, yes.
So we're going to have to worry about how they're handling our main characters while still feeding us, hey, see this guy? Wait around and see that, right? Or see her, she's going to come over from an island and become Wonder Woman. You want to see that, right? Or see this guy, he's going to try and get kryptonite and kill Superman. You want to see that, right? Like, all of these different things in the pot. you wonder how that's going to affect the flavor.
Yeah.
Too many ingredients in the pot might be too much.
And we've been saying that for a while now.
Yeah.
And that's not really news, but I do still think it's something to worry about. I guess that having been said, there's not a whole heck of a lot of other Batman news to kind of drill into for the time being.
Right. The last thing I'll say is that, come on, people, let's be reasonable. This is a costume. This says nothing about his performance. Let's give credit where credit is due. Good job, Snyder.
Give Ben Affleck a chance.
Yeah, let's not complain about the suit. The suit looks fine. We'll probably all shut up once we see a full body shot from the front in color.
Okie dokie. So, we do have one more story that we want to talk about, which I guess we really only have a handful of minutes to discuss. I know we started a little late.
Yeah.
But, so...
we talk about that project being adapted and the problems there, and we always talk about how sometimes Hollywood manages to sacrifice a lot of things for the sake of the almighty dollar, for that giraffe money. Well, here, in front of you guys, is an example of people who took a very little amount, not even all of what they were asking for, and made something incredible.
So this is the Akira Project. As you can see, the poster art that I've chosen to bring up to you guys here looks very iconically like the cover art and the poster art from the animated movie. It looks almost perfect. And so too does the little fan-made trailer, which I'll pull up here briefly in a moment. But the point is that it was a fan-made project, and thus they had an Indiegogo page to create not even a whole film, just a trailer. Just a trailer that would look like a real movie, but it would look like it had the love and the dedication and the accuracy that a fan could give it. And what they were asking for was about $7,500. They did not make half that.
No, they made $3,428.
And this was
back in 2012.
The campaign ended in 2012. So they still pushed on anyway, regardless of the fact that they did not meet their goal. Of course, when you do an Indiegogo, unlike Kickstarter, you actually do in fact get to keep the majority of the funds that that you raised during the Indiegogo campaign.
Because if you were to do, say, a Kickstarter, yeah, you'll make the money, but
if for some reason you do not make your goal, then all that money gets returned to the backers.
Exactly. So then, what are you left with? Can you really push on with nothing?
So, for that reason, I'm actually looking for the Akira trailer that I know that I pulled off the website, and now suddenly I can't find it. So I guess for that reason I'll leave the movie poster up for a little while longer. But it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Well, while Kellen looks for it, I'll explain to you guys why this means so much. When you think about it in context, we've already had to deal with, like we said, Chronicle was as close as we've gotten thus far to an Akira movie, and then they've got another movie coming out this summer, The Signal, which also seems to pull from that same well of Akira as source material for the movie they're doing there. And like we've heard for years and years, they're working on an Akira movie that may or may not eventually get made over here. And as such, we complain about, the news that we had heard. Oh, Leonardo DiCaprio's attached to produce. We're not sure if he's going to be in it. Garrett Hedlund's going to play Tetsuo or Kaneda or one of them. We don't know one way or the other, but you're not guaranteed something that's true to what fans know and what fans love about
and usually
the original.
You're nowhere close to guaranteed when it comes to Hollywood adaptations. So thus, typically, not always, but typically a fan would get more accurate because they just love the material so damn much. And this trailer, as you're kind of seeing here in the corner of the screen right now, is probably the closest thing anybody is ever going to get to an accurate adaptation of Akira done live action. Look at Neo Tokyo. It's
beautiful.
It's perfect. And yeah, it's CG, but it's well enough done CG, even for a fan film that only had $3,500 raised. Well enough done that it looks pretty well realistic. You can pretty much tell that they only had so many actors so they can't do the full bike ride opening chase sequence, but it's enough that you can see that that's what they were trying to get across. Of course, the bike is fake. It's not a real bike, but hey, looks pretty sweet.
It looks well integrated.
It does look pretty well integrated.
This
Love the sweeping tail lights.
The trailing lights. Those iconic trailing lights from that sequence. And even as such, the guy that got playing Kaneda there sounds just like Johnny Young Bosch in the dub.
From specifically that one particular dub. These shots are almost 100% accurate recreations from all the appropriate angles that the animated movie took. Of course, it looks very plainly like it's more an adaptation of the movie than it was the original manga.
That's not to say that this isn't a feat.
Oh, no, absolutely not. That you saw a second ago, the freaking bear.
The teddy bear.
Bear that's supposed to leak milk because that's something that Tetsuo is freaking out about and he's seeing in his head. I wanted to see more of that scene right there, you know?
Well, because I remember when I saw this first and then I showed you, and when it got to the sequence of, Tetsuo crashing his bike and then the teddy bear, it was too real quick from you back to back. Oh, crap! Oh, crap! But it wasn't a bad oh crap, it was a, oh my god, they actually got this right.
Mm-hmm.
And you continue to see it throughout this. They weren't... First off, let's make a point of saying they didn't adapt anything to America here. They kept it in Neo Tokyo. They've kept the characters predominantly Asian. They've kept it as close as they could possibly get it. Look at that laser. That laser looks like it jumped out of manga panels. It looks like it jumped off the cells from the original.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. The explosion looks way better than, I would say, better than the explosions they were using in The Day the Earth Stood Still, which I still think they pulled from Akira there.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
But yeah, that right there is about the bulk of the trailer, and then this credit area.
I know you don't hear anything during these credits right now from what we're playing, but there's a very nice version of is it Kaneda or Tetsuo? Kaneda's theme. Straight from the beginning of the movie where they're about to do that bike chase sequence with the trailing lights. And the chanting, of course. A great remix of that particular track, actually. I love that it is that song, but it's not a direct rip-off of that song. They're not just straight up playing the song. They made it their own, but it's clearly supposed to be the same audio track, the same feel.
Like, it's modern enough and, I guess, techno enough that people who aren't familiar are like, you know what, yeah, that's pretty tight trailer music, but fans, both new and diehard alike, will look at it and say, you know what? Oh man, that's Kaneda's theme. I recognize that. I hear that. And that really pulls you in. That makes you feel, as a fan, an attachment to this project. You know what? Good job, you guys. You guys did what we're all concerned and convinced Hollywood can't. And I love the fact that since it debuted, I think Saturday, till now, it's made just about every major nerdy news site's front page. Like, people are pouring out saying, you guys did work that is worthy to be seen by other people.
I would hope that these guys go from more small-time business to more professional business, and that this becomes their business. Passion projects like this.
Yes.
You know?
Well, because you think about it, I think I've said that before, that these passion projects, these fan films, might just be the way of the future in a certain respect, because you think about this fan project, without even its full budget, manages to get closer than anything else. You know, certain things would have gotten sacrificed, like we've heard they would move Neo Tokyo to like Neo New York or something like that.
Which is so stupid, New York.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm sorry.
You know, things like that would get changed. They didn't hardly sacrifice anything. I don't think they sacrificed anything. What they did sacrifice was time and energy to make this thing.
I'm sure they sacrificed some plans, considering they didn't make their full goal. I'm sure they would have gone an extra distance had they received more money. Like, part of me is now kind of sitting here wondering, man, I so wish they had made that full goal so I could see what more they probably wanted to do. But you know what? It's okay. It's totally okay, because this is enough of a tease to be like, you know what? You've proven yourself to me. I almost don't need to see any more, except you got just enough to make me wish I could see more. That's a feeling that I get so rarely these days.
Because it's not the same as it was, say, 20, 30 years ago with people making fan-made Star Trek, Star Wars, Ghostbusters movies in their backyards with their friends, you know, and you're using cardboard boxes and things like that. It's done with that same heart, but this looks absolutely professional. And you think about it, those plans still exist for, I think it's Warner Brothers and Legendary to do their take on Akira. If they screw up, you know what's going to happen first. People are going to say they did in 3 minutes what you guys couldn't do in 2 hours.
Oh,
what
yeah.
does that
I'll
say?
be on that boat. I'm positive I will be on that boat. And again, I have to say, you know me, I don't look forward to anything anymore. There is very little that I look forward to anymore. But this, you saw me like, who are these guys? Where did they come from? I gotta know more about them. Do they have more images of this stuff? What other projects are they doing? Like, I want to know more. Actually, he's gonna go link in the chat room right now to Akira-Project.com, right?
Yes, you guys can go check out for yourselves just how much work went into the creation of this trailer, and really give these guys a like, share this with your friends. You can go ahead and like them on Facebook. These guys deserve all the credit for what they were able to do here. This was beautiful as far as adaptation goes. You know, it's nice to see, you know, this couple of guys from Toronto, and they've done what Hollywood can't, even though, you know, a lot of people film in Toronto. But
is it Toronto or is it Montreal? I thought it was Montreal.
Well, up in Canada.
Quebec. Because it was French Canada, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so, like...
Hey, go Canada.
That's fine with me. I don't care where it came from. It's good. Doesn't matter where it came from. Shoot, it's freaking good.
Yeah, let's just hope they do something else. Because I've got a couple of other latent... intellectual properties I would like them to take a look at.
Oh, yeah. Tons of stuff. Like, can we go back and just erase anything Dragon Ball that has ever come out?
Yeah.
Like,
Akira Toriyama needs your help. So, guys...
Can we start over?
Yeah, if you can get on that, that would be great. Just saying.
Can we also think about, you know, martial arts films, like, I don't know, Street Fighter... Or
well, no,
Dead
actually,
or
now
Alive,
we've got, at least as far as Street Fighter is concerned...
Mortal Kombat...
Well, no, you think about it, just like what I said, Mortal Kombat, we look to Legacy, which is a more reduced budget, smaller scale story that's being told way better than that second movie. And then you've got Street Fighter Assassin's Fist coming out, another fan project that looks way more accurate than either the 90s movie or, you know, the... not even laughable Legend of Chun-Li. Like, these are what we have to look forward to now. This is why I say we like to tell you guys about these fan projects.
Back the fans, man. The fans can do some incredible things if given the opportunity. So, yeah. That's why we want to give that outlet.
Exactly. Fans know what's up. Fans deserve the credit because fans did what fans love.
And they deserve the opportunity. Absolutely. I guess that's about all we have to talk about for the time being, right?
Yeah, I think that covers it.
Alright, then, I thank you guys who are here in our live stream right now for coming out a night early. Some of you are getting the opportunity to see it now when you otherwise would not have, so I'm glad you guys were able to make it. I apologize to you guys over on YouTube if you were planning to come out for our Thursday show and thus were not able to, but... in the meantime, you do have this now, because I'm about to put this on YouTube, and it'll be hopefully a bit earlier than I typically would be putting it up.
Yes.
So, that having been said, feel free to follow us on Twitter, of course, and learn if there's going to be any other changes to the schedule. I am at MarsGirl.
And I'm at Josh Knight First.
And I guess with that having been said, for you guys in the chat room, hang out with us for an additional half an hour, and we will do some Q&A and stuff.
All right, but... for the time being, this has been this episode of Beyond Black Rims, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take it easy.